This conference will now be recorded.
Good afternoon or good morning to you, new supervisor. This is kind of an overview that I wanted to put out to kind of explain the AmeriCorps lingo that people may not be as familiar with. First off, I want to say thank you so much for being a supervisor in our program. You may be familiar with AmeriCorps, you may have been an AmeriCorps alum, or this could be really the first time that you are experiencing AmeriCorps. And let me tell you, it's an amazing program. And I truly love what the Dubuque community has to offer here with the program. So we offer two AmeriCorps grants in our program. One is for the Every Child Reads, which is previously known as the Campaign for Grade Level Reading. And then we also offer an AmeriCorps program that's focused around teen learning and teen engagement. So all in all, we really try to fit the holes that exist within the community. We try to focus on filling those gaps and the voids and catching kids before they fall through the cracks, or helping them get back through. So as a supervisor, you are paying attention to what's going on with your AmeriCorps member, what sorts of services that they're doing, and you're giving them guidance. Not all AmeriCorps members come to us completely developed as young professionals. Not all of them come knowing what exactly they would like to do after their term of service for AmeriCorps. So this is an opportunity to guide them and shape them and help them figure that out. I always say that this is an opportunity to really create maybe possibly a future employee for your organization. You get to train them and mold them and guide them into exactly what you are looking for in an employee with your organization. AmeriCorps members are oftentimes they do get hired by the organization they serve with after their term of service. So it's something that we really try to strive for, and it's very important to us. So with that, I'm going to be walking through how to find the information I am going to cover today in this recording, and then how you can find that. I will be updating this information as needed. So it's always good to just kind of pay attention and check in. I always try to do a yearly call for the AmeriCorps directors or the AmeriCorps supervisors for all of you, so that you can get some information as needed. I'm going to tell this to, there we go. So moving on, all of the information I'm going to cover will either be posted on or linked to our AmeriCorps page at the City of Dubuque's website. So you can find that by going to, up here you'll see cityofdubuque.org, and it has a bunch of numbers. But if you go to cityofdubuque.org/AmeriCorps, AmeriCorps, it's going to take you to this main page, and that's what we're looking at. So you can see, there's some information on here. You can look through there. There's a video. You'll see over here that we have the links to the applications, impact, alumni, information about AmeriCorps terminology, the Dubuque National Service Partnership with the Senior Corps programs in Dubuque, and then our members. But where I'm going to point you to is member benefits and alumni resources. So this is going to be a really important page, because this is helping members and alumni just have access to the information during and after their term of service. So it will link them to AmeriCorps Alums, which is a great website that still engages AmeriCorps members after they finish their term of service. Information about the AmeriCorps Living Allowance, the child care assistance that's available to be applied for by full-time AmeriCorps members, COVID-19 updates, which hopefully maybe by the time you're watching this, COVID-19 won't be a big deal, but updates in regards to the meetings that I have with the AmeriCorps members on a weekly basis and giving them information is posted there. Health resources, the end of their service exit requirements, member assistance plan, which is like the equivalent of an employee assistance plan, myamericorps.gov, which is where they can access their education award, AmeriCorps reports timesheets, and the AmeriCorps reports timesheet direction. That is where they submit their timesheets, and you as a supervisor will go there to approve those timesheets. Program policies, public benefits, the Segal Education Award, student loan forbearance and public student loan forgiveness, and site supervisor resources, which is where we are going to go next. So in the site supervisor resources section, you'll see a message here from me under Dear Supervisors. There's my photo, as well as email and phone number if you are ever having any trouble getting a hold of me. So I'm gonna hop down to personnel policies. So as an AmeriCorps program, we really try to adapt to what each organization is doing. For the most part, I would say that our policies are pretty cut and dry as far as the program level. There are obviously federal regulations and federal compliance areas that we will get into that are very, that are things that we need to be paying attention to. However, our general policies with our program, I try to make them so that they are very flexible, so that your AmeriCorps member can both abide by the program's policies and then also abide by your organizational policies. And in a way, the program policies are there to just ensure that the AmeriCorps members are being influenced positively for each. So the AmeriCorps members do need to abide by your organizational policies and the AmeriCorps policies. And you can look at the AmeriCorps policies by either going back to the page where it said program policies or just clicking the link here. So as a site supervisor and as an organization that hosts the AmeriCorps members from our program, there are certain responsibilities that you have. And to me, one of the most important responsibilities is providing opportunities for AmeriCorps members to perform direct service. So engaging directly with the population that they are meant to serve, but also these opportunities should be meaningful. Yes, we all need to wipe down tables, and occasionally we need to take out the trash next to our desk, but that's not all they should do. We want to make sure that what they're doing is reasonable, that it's meaningful and important in their experience, but also, is going to be something that when they leave their term of service, that it's such a good experience that they either want to come back or that they want to tell their friends and their friends want to do it, so it's giving them something meaningful is so important. They're just like you and I, where we want to do something that is engaging and exciting. So if we give that to them, whether they come back for a second year, the experience that they have as AmeriCorps members will stay with them for the rest of their lives. I can attest to that as a AmeriCorps member. I served myself, but so many of them often speak of their experiences and how positive it is. So that's a really important piece. We also want to help them achieve measurable outcomes. As you will likely know by this point, AmeriCorps is very data-driven. So we want to make sure that what they're doing is actually a part of getting the outcomes that we need for the program. We also need you as a supervisor in an organization to host an orientation that is specific to your organization and the training that they need to carry out their assigned tasks. So they may need, as an academic reading tutor, they're obviously going to need information about how do you tutor children? What's the appropriate way to do that? How do they blend? How do they segment words? All of that. But for maybe somebody who's focusing on mentoring and engaging in recruiting mentors, they need another set of skills that ultimately it's up to you as the organization to provide that information. I can equip them with certain skills on the program level. However, it's up to you as the expert in the organization doing those activities to really focus down on the specific things that are needed to be done. You also should talk to your staff within your organization so they understand what an AmeriCorps member is and how they fit into your organization's structure. But also to make sure that maybe some other staff don't, come up and say, oh, this person, they're like an intern, right? And then hand them some data documents to enter or things like that. We just want to make sure that what we're giving our AmeriCorps members is, something meaningful to them. We also want AmeriCorps members to be provided with the resources and tools to perform their duties effectively. So if that means, your AmeriCorps member needs access to a computer, or maybe they need access to a phone because they're contacting community members for your organization, they need access to that. If they're going to be doing any emailing for your organization, maybe they need an email address so that you can appropriately monitor the communication between the AmeriCorps member and the children or the families that they're communicating with. You should also, provide that member with mentoring and leadership opportunities, professional development, anything that you would do, honestly, with a staff or maybe an intern, because you should really want these people to have a good experience. Investing in your AmeriCorps member is one of the best investments that you can make because of, it increases the opportunity for retention, but it also, it tells them that they're worth investing in. And, if you as an employee have ever felt that yourself, it feels really good. And so it's just the same thing with these AmeriCorps members. You'll need, as the organization will need to designate an appropriate supervisor, which is likely this person who is watching this video. You will need to provide day-to-day supervision to the AmeriCorps members, and you'll need to document that as in-kind, which we'll get into. You'll also conduct a midterm evaluation along with myself, the director, and you'll also approve the members' biweekly timesheets. So, you're essentially doing what a supervisor does. But honestly, with an AmeriCorps member, some AmeriCorps members take more time to supervise than others. But that doesn't mean that, if your AmeriCorps member takes less time than maybe a different AmeriCorps member, you don't want to just say, oh, that person's just fine on their own. Think of other ways that you can encourage them to improve and do better. We will discuss what non-duplication and non-displacement is as well. But those are Corporation of National and Community Service Policies, which is the federal entity that, polices and is the parent organization for AmeriCorps. So those are Congress-approved policies. There's also the Drug-Free Workplace Act that we have to abide by. We also want to make sure that our AmeriCorps members are not discriminated against on the basis of age, religion, disability, political affiliation, veteran status, gender, sexual orientation, race, ethnicity, or national origin. Having an inclusive program is very important to the city of Dubuque and very important to myself. So if your AmeriCorps member is experiencing those things, whether it be from a program participant, it's very important that we support that member and remove them from those sorts of situations, just like we would anyone else. As an organization, you are responsible for providing a cash match to cover the costs associated with your members' living stipend. Host organizations, you cannot, so realistically, as the AmeriCorps director and the AmeriCorps program, I try to not disrupt as much AmeriCorps service at the organization level as I can. However, we will need AmeriCorps members to attend trainings and events and service projects and activities for the program. So I try to communicate the days that I need them as soon as I can. But please know that we need them there, and that if there is a problem or if there's a conflict, we will try to work with you on that. It's very important to me that we serve you as a program. Additionally, if you are having problems with your AmeriCorps members' performance, maybe they're not coming to their service site on time, they're having unprofessional behavior, things like that, please communicate to me as soon as possible. Putting it on the back burner or letting it happen over and over isn't setting a good example for the AmeriCorps member, and we obviously want to make sure that the service that they're providing to you is positively affecting your organization and the program they're serving and not negatively affecting it. And as I mentioned, you'll provide in-kind supervision of the member that's assigned to your service site. And then you'll document that supervision using a timesheet, and you'll submit it to our program. So as I mentioned, providing members with meaningful service, the experience that they have is so very important. So usually I will meet with you to discuss the duties that your AmeriCorps member will perform to make sure that it's in line with the position description that we will put out and advertise for, but to also make sure that the duties are not being duplicated by another person in your organization. So these are things that we should discuss, a little bit more at length individually as director and site supervisor. But an example for our tutors is listed here. Contributing in-kind hours. So as a site supervisor, you're not just the role that you exist at your organization, you're also, somebody who's helping me with these AmeriCorps members. So when you're supervising your AmeriCorps member, we need you to keep track of the hours that you're meeting or training your member, that you're meeting with a teacher or a staff about that member, approving member timesheets, calculating your own in-kind hours, any meetings, phone calls, or emails that you spend with myself, time that you spend filling out midterm and end of term reviews, any sort of data collection or analysis that you're doing of member students or the types of activities that they're doing. And we also have here a timesheet that we use. So downloading that, it is an Excel timesheet. And obviously this is for 2019-2020. If we're past that point now, this document will be updated with the most recent timesheets. So as you can see here, in this document, you have the option to do kind of a drop down. So it could be more than what I had just mentioned. So you can choose more than the above. And then the hours you spent supervising an AmeriCorps member. So I kind of limit it to about 2 hours a day because realistically, if you're spending more than 2 hours a day with your AmeriCorps member, you're either kind of miscalculating because it's not being in the same room as the AmeriCorps member. You're not just making sure that they're there and existing, but supervising to us means that you're actively engaging them on something. So usually more than 2 hours a day. It's either being miscalculated and just being kind of seen in a different way, or there's something wrong and that we need to kind of work with your AmeriCorps members, whether that's providing some additional support, or maybe an accommodation, or determining maybe the duties that they're being assigned may not be a good fit, or maybe that member isn't a good fit. There's just so many things, and so that's just an opportunity to discuss. And this is set up to just automatically calculate your non-AmeriCorps hours. And then at the end of the month, I just ask that you, and you'll see here that it has September through August on here. Please use the same timesheet. It helps us out, and just move on to the next month. But we ask that you print this, sign, and fax or email or mail it to me, the AmeriCorps director. And so this helps us get the in-kind hours that we need for our grant funding. So also on there, and this is something that I will typically have asked you to complete, is the salary match documentation. So you can send this to your finance person and they can fill it out for you. But just your gross salary, benefits, and values per pay period, if you're full-time or part-time, and your salary period from weekly, bi-weekly, semi-monthly, or monthly, and the sources of your finances and how that works. And then signing, printing, date for those who completed it. So again, you can likely send it to your finance department, but if you know that information as well, you can fill that out. So bouncing back over here, then it's monitoring AmeriCorps member service hours. So that's where we're going to jump to Encore reports. And so I am going to open up a new browser. And Encore reports is the timesheet system that the AmeriCorps members participate in. That's where they log their timesheets, and that you as a supervisor will go to approve those timesheets. So Encore reports, we have a special link that is ia.oncorpsreports.com. And then additionally, if you go back to this page here, if you click on Encore Report Timesheets, it's going to take you to that page. So I've tried to link that for your convenience. The other benefit is that with AmeriCorps, anytime a member submits a timesheet, it is going to automatically shoot you an email that says, hey, your AmeriCorps member has submitted your timesheet. Please click on this link, and it has a direct link to have you sign in and approve that member's timesheet. But this is the main page, and it is important to kind of know that this is the landing page and how to get to the member timesheets from there. So you're going to choose the appropriate year or program year to log into your timesheets. So you'll see 2019-2020, that is the current program year for us. However, you can go back to 2018-2019 or to 2020-2021. So going into 2018-2019, it will default to a program year, so you may have to change that every time. You'll hit submit, and the one thing that is very, very important to note is which program you are choosing. You will see all of these different programs, and many of them are not ours. So you want to make sure you choose AmeriCorps Partners in Learning, and you'll need to choose whether your K through 3rd grade program, which is typically organizations such as Dubuque Community School District, Carnegie South Public Library, Leisure Services Playground Program, and St. Mark Youth Enrichment. Partners such as the Multicultural Family Center, Hillcrest Family Services, and Leisure Services Teen Night programs, they are typically in these Teen Night program services here. So in this, I'm going to choose, and you always want to make sure we are not always the 2nd and 3rd. Occasionally we might be 1st, or we might be 4th or 5th, or even lower. It's all it's all based off of alphabetical order. Sorry, I kind of forgot what it meant there. So as a site supervisor, you are going to go in here and choose, you know, site supervisor. So I'm actually going to log in here, and when you go here, you'll want to make sure there's usually information. I try to post the training dates and things like that for the members so that you're also aware of it. But you'll have your site supervisor and username, which is typically your first initial and last name, and then your password, which we will have kind of a temporary password for you, and then you'll reset it when you first log in. So logging in as a site supervisor, there's a couple things that you can do. You on your page, you'll have the ability to add these notifications that you're seeing on here. At first it'll be blank, but you'll add the notifications by just clicking on the drop downs here, and it's telling you missing timesheets. So right now I have a dummy account that's for myself. As you can see here, I've got a lot of missing timesheets. And then under here is timesheets that have been unlocked and not submitted, or that I have been sent back for correcting. Again, that's a dummy timesheet for us. So we can drop down to approving member timesheets. So clicking on that, there's actually no timesheets for approval right now in this account that I've had, but we'll also go to filter member timesheets. So that lets us kind of take a look at our members. And I'm going to go and I'm actually going to click on my dummy account, and I'm going to submit. And from here, you're going to see lots of information. There's a drop down that says, okay, how many hours have been served? What's the target? What's the current? How many do I need to get to complete? How much of it has been service versus how much has been training? How many hours have I done in lunch and total? And then you'll see down here that you can view timesheets, which there's an approved one here, but then there's also one that's rejected. So if you have an AmeriCorps member that submits a timesheet and it's incorrect, you can reject it back to the member to be corrected. And you'll see that on many of these timesheets that some members may be clocking in, that they might have multiple entries for the days. And that's to ensure that they're breaking up their hours appropriately. Because while they may have a training in the morning and then they have lunch, and then they might go to serve directly at the organization. So it's just very important to kind of make sure that everything looks in line and looks accurate before you submit it. And if it doesn't, just reject it back to the AmeriCorps member for correction. It's a relatively intuitive design and pretty easy to work. There's also an FAQ. There's a request help form, so if you do have some troubles, you can get some help there. And then also help resources and tutorials. So if you are having trouble, you can go down and download or view these documents. So leaving Encore reports, well, before we go, member timesheets are submitted on a bi-weekly basis, and we have them due on Saturdays. And so we prefer to have the timesheets approved by the supervisors within 3 days, which is Tuesday. And you'll likely receive a reminder email that says, hey, don't forget to come in and approve this. So as a supervisor, it is important to know, where your member's at. I'm also monitoring these timesheets, but oftentimes you know a little bit more about what they're doing and where they're at than I do. So if both of us don't know, we should have a communication and talk to each other and then also to that member. So moving on from there, we have the AmeriCorps member contracts. So every AmeriCorps member abides by a member service agreement with the program. It's all of the federal regulations that they need to abide by as a member. A copy of that contract will be placed on here for the next program year that you can take a look at as well. Members will also have training and orientation that the AmeriCorps program provides. Orientation includes all of the AmeriCorps policies and procedures that we have to pay attention to, but also we typically try to focus on things like adverse childhood experiences. We try to focus on trauma-informed care. Many trainings that we do will have an equity focus, you know, and we will have tough conversations around race and, you know, privilege and things like that, because it's so important for our members to understand the communities that they may be serving, whether they're a part of those community members or not, or those communities or not. So, we try to do orientation during the school year, usually about one day, and then we have multiple trainings every month. And then during the summertime, I usually try to do about the first week of it as AmeriCorps orientation, and then I release them to their sites from there. AmeriCorps members, as supervisors, you need to keep the information about your AmeriCorps members confidential. So if that is like a reasonable accommodation request or a grievance or anything that they share with you, you know, we don't want you to tell that to like people in your organization that it's not relevant for. And the same goes that your AmeriCorps members are also expected to hold the confidentiality of their of the people that they serve as well. Drug-free workplace. So all AmeriCorps sites are expected to comply with Drug-Free Workplace Act. We implement and monitor the program. You still need to be aware of the implications for your daily operations. As an organization, you will also need to display a sign stating that AmeriCorps members are serving there, which I will give to you to display. AmeriCorps also has national days of service, so whether that's MLK Day, National or 9/11 Day of Service, Days of Caring, things like that, anything like that, we will communicate to you for that we would be having some sort of an activity on that day. Additionally, all AmeriCorps members are encouraged to vote, but the service site can't require them to register to vote and cannot attempt to influence that vote as well. We should and need to make sure that they are given time to vote during their service hours if necessary. So please make sure to just keep that in mind anytime voting season is around the corner. And jury duty. So jury duty is something that we really want AmeriCorps members to participate in jury duty, and we don't want them to be penalized for it. So during the time that they are selected to serve as jurors, they can count their normal service hours. So if they're called in for jury selection, maybe at Monday at 8 o'clock, and they usually don't come in until Monday at noon, and then usually they end at 5 or something like that, and jury selection for them goes from 8 a.m. until 3. They can count the time frame from 12 o'clock to 3 o'clock. And anytime that happens, please make sure that I am aware that they're selected for jury duty. I really try to encourage the members to have open communication with me about, you know, their schedules and things like that, as well as time off requests and all that good stuff. But, you know, it's also helpful to have that communication from you as a site supervisor. So I'm gonna also go up here to our grievance policy section and injuries and everything on the sidebar. So AmeriCorps programs have a grievance policy. So anytime an AmeriCorps member is, in a way, I guess, I don't want to say unreasonably, but they may feel unreasonably punished or just, you know, or discriminated against or things like that, that they have an outlet to actually address the grievance policy or through a grievance policy. So whether they feel that maybe they were, you know, terminated from their AmeriCorps contract, you know, inappropriately, or that they were discriminated against and didn't get something, or even a staff member of your organization, if an AmeriCorps member if they were let go and AmeriCorps member took their position as an AmeriCorps member, which it would be called what's called non-displacement, and we'll discuss that, that they also, they can issue a grievance as well. So as a site supervisor, I really encourage you to read this documentation. I'm not going to go through it completely with you. I'm not going to read all of it, but I just want to make sure that you know that there is a grievance policy and that there is also a grievance form that the AmeriCorps members can come here and fill out. So, and that's all accessible in the member benefits section. So moving on from there, I'm gonna go back, injuries. So if an AmeriCorps member does get an injury, if the injury is serious, they need to call 911 immediately. And in the case that it's not, serious, that they just slipped and fell, and, they maybe turned their ankle or something like that, or maybe they, something that is non-life threatening but needs to be seen right away, maybe dislocated a finger or something like that, that you can call the company nurse injury, and I guess maybe a dislocation of a finger can be. So, make that call, or that member should make that call on how they feel in that moment. But in the case that it's just an injury, they pull a muscle or something like that, they can call the company nurse injury hotline, which the number is 1-888-770-0928. And if that were to ever change, I will update it on this page. It is available 24 hours a day. AmeriCorps members that are injured should notify the supervisor and director, and the supervisor or the AmeriCorps member should immediately call that hotline. And then the company nurse will gather the information over the phone and help that member access appropriate medical treatment. So if it's a non-life threatening, again, we want you to call, or we want the member or yourself to call the company nurse hotline prior to treatment. And you'll need to tell them that the member is with City of Dubuque and that the code is IA746. So again, if any of that information ever changes, it'll be here on this page as well. Moving on to the next section, non-displacement and non-duplication. So these have been passed by federal mandate. Congress has passed this. This is expectations for anyone who receives any sort of Corporation for National or Community Service funding. So that's AmeriCorps, Senior Corps, Peace Corps, all of the above. So non-duplication and non-displacement. What it means is that non-duplication means that AmeriCorps members' activities cannot be the same as an actual employee of the organization they're serving with. So as the AmeriCorps director, I do have a part-time assistant, and that person only works 15 hours a week. It's not an AmeriCorps position, it is a paid staff position. But if I thought, you know what, I actually can't afford my assistant anymore, so instead I'm going to pluck one of my AmeriCorps members out and I'm actually just going to have them do the assistant role, or that really in non-duplication, it would be more so that I can't pay my assistant more, but I need them to work more hours, so I just actually have the AmeriCorps member pick up that slack for her because I can't pay my staff person anymore. So that would be duplicating. And if this is something, both duplication and non-displacement is something that can get AmeriCorps programs into some pretty real trouble, enough that the funding can be taken away. So this is an area that is super important that as a site supervisor, you are aware of, because I also monitor that. And this is something that your organization is not the only one that's receiving services from the AmeriCorps program. So it is paramount that we follow and comply with these policies, because not only do you put your use of AmeriCorps members at risk, but you're also putting all of these other organizations that we partner with at risk as well. So this is an area that I take very seriously. And if, as a director, I find that duplication or displacement is happening, or that members are being misused in some way, that I can and will remove them from your site. And that's not something I want to do, and that's not something, it's just I want you to know how important this is. Non-displacement would be in line with, maybe I couldn't pay my assistant any longer, so I fire her, or actually maybe I don't want to pay her as much as I have been paying her because I can use an AmeriCorps member for cheaper. That is a misuse, and it is called displacement. So that is something that we take very seriously. AmeriCorps members should not displace the organization or any staff members. Can't displace a volunteer as well. So we just need to make sure that we're paying attention to that and just being cognizant of it as things may change in your organization. So these are conversations that I'm happy to have with you to make sure, and I will likely, have these conversations probably on a yearly basis with you, just to make sure, it's part of my job. So yeah, happy to help in any way that I can in regards to that. Moving on to prohibited activities. So this is another federally mandated item. So AmeriCorps members, while they are charging time to the AmeriCorps program, accumulating service or training hours, are performing any service activities associated with the AmeriCorps program, members and any volunteers that they recruit can't engage in the following activities. So they cannot attempt to influence legislation, they cannot organize or engage in protest petitions, boycotts, or strikes, they cannot assist, promote, or deter union organizing, impair existing service agreements for services or collective bargaining agreements, engaging in partisan political activities or other activities designed to influence the outcome of an election to any public office, participating in or endorsing events or activities that are likely to include advocacy for or against political parties, platforms, candidates, legislation, or elected officials. AmeriCorps members can also not engage in religious instruction, conduct worship services, provide instruction as part of a program that includes mandatory religious instruction or worship, construct or operate facilities devoted to religious instruction or worship, maintain those facilities primarily or inherently devoted to religious instruction or worship, or engaging in any form of religious proselytization. AmeriCorps members can also not provide a direct benefit to a business organized for profit, a labor union, a partisan political organization, or a nonprofit that fails to comply with the restrictions contained in Section 501c3 of the IRS Code of 1986 related to engaging in political activities or substantial amount of lobbying, except that nothing in these provisions shall be construed to prevent participants from providing or from participating in advocacy activities undertaken on their own initiative. And they can also not provide a direct benefit to any organization engaged in the religious activities described in Section 7. And then 9, conducting a voter registration drive or using CNCS funds to conduct a voter registration drive, providing abortion services or referrals for receipt of such services, or other activities that the Corporation for National and Community Service, which is CNCS, or the Iowa Commission on Volunteer Service may prohibit. AmeriCorps members may not engage in the above activities directly or indirectly by recruiting, training, or managing others for the primary purpose of engaging in one of the activities listed above. AmeriCorps members can do any and all of that as private citizens. They can do whatever they want, but they cannot do that on AmeriCorps time. So if you at all are considering having a member engage in any of those, or maybe something that is in a gray area of that, please communicate with me first, because it needs to be determined if that is or is not okay. Additionally, AmeriCorps members and fundraising, it's not an area that as a program I get into, because ultimately doing any sort of fundraising it's so very specific within AmeriCorps guidelines. And we also have to make sure that as the AmeriCorps program, I can track where the money you're fundraising is going. So if it's going into your general fund or operating expenses or things like that, I have to be able to track that and know where it's going. And I would assume that you would not want me to have access to that information, and I personally also don't want access to that information. So we do not let AmeriCorps members do any sort of like fundraising, especially for their living allowance. And they can also not write grants to federal agencies such as the Corporation for National and Community Service and other AmeriCorps grants, but they could write local grants and things like that. They can also do, they can seek donations of books to do a book drive. They, let's say kids don't have winter coats. They can seek, donations of items. Again, we would rather have items versus money. If you're doing a fundraiser, honestly, I'm going to tell you that your AmeriCorps members shouldn't be at that fundraiser. So if it is maybe the Scholastic Book Fair, unfortunately, AmeriCorps members cannot help with the book fair, but they can do something, maybe they can read a book in a room over that, is for kids who are done with the book fair or maybe didn't want to go. They could also put a table up to at those fundraisers to sign people up to be mentors in a program. Just not so that they're doing the fundraising, but they're still doing the programming aspect of things. So again, please communicate with me with any concerns or questions about this area, and I'm happy to help you in any way. And then moving into reasonable accommodations policy. So we want to make sure that AmeriCorps members that we're providing the accommodations based off of what their needs are, if they have a disability and things like that. So there is a form that they can submit to us to request a reasonable accommodation. And those are things that we take into consideration that, maybe an AmeriCorps member tripped and fell and broke a leg. And now they can't get upstairs and your building has stairs. Can we find a space for them? If they had an office space upstairs, can we temporarily move them downstairs? Or, maybe if they're seeing students or working with students that are on a second and third floor, maybe we, utilize moving some students around, or maybe the AmeriCorps member that might also be at your site takes over the second and third floor, and the AmeriCorps member that has the broken leg is on the first floor. If it is something else, obviously, we can't, it's again a reasonable accommodation. So any requests that happen, we obviously want to make sure that it is reasonable for both the program, but also for the host site. So if a request comes through for a reasonable accommodation, we will communicate and we'll work together to be able to accommodate that member, whether that means a change in service location or service site or whatever we can do to help support them. So that is also that's the gist for the AmeriCorps service side of things. However, there is our policies and procedures, the program policies for members. So we do have an alternate service opportunities, attendance and punctuality, code of conduct, compelling personal circumstances, COVID-19 policies that have been changed possibly because of COVID-19, disaster response, documentation policies, dress codes, the drug-free workplace, grievance form and policy, injuries, non-duplication, displacement, prohibited activities, reasonable accommodation form and policy, reflection project, and teleservice. So I do ask you to please, check those out. And if by chance there is a policy that you think that the AmeriCorps members or AmeriCorps program should have in place for the AmeriCorps members, I'm happy to discuss that with you. Again, I will take us back to this sort of main page with my information on there. I hope that this was beneficial to you. I hope that it's kind of taking you through, with the gist of things. And if at all you have any questions, please contact me. You can reach me by phone at 563-690-6171, or you can email me at HSATTERL, so my first initial and last name without the Y, at cityofdubuque.org. Thank you so much for tuning into this call, and please let me know if you have any questions. Thank you. Bye-bye.